All right, good evening and welcome everyone to the Vocational Science of Freedom Saturday night Civics and Sovereignty class. And we'll go over a little bit of the information which we've been gathering for the status doc terms tonight. And then later I will also go over some more information about Self-Reliance. So if you would like to join the Vocational Science of Freedom Gilded server, you can do so by going to the Vocational Science of Freedom YouTube page and clicking on the banner where it says VSOF Gilded server. Make sure when you enter the Gilded server that you download Gilded, and then when you get here to the Vocational Science of Freedom, make sure that you hit apply in the upper left hand corner and not just follow, and then you'll be prompted to ask some questions, and then you can join us in our discussions and have access to the rest of the Vocational Science of Freedom Gilded server, where we post all kinds of links and information about freedom and sovereignty. So tonight I posted the links in chat for the Mega, and if you want to download them, the two documents that I are going to go over is Remedy for the Settlement of Our Estates in CFR and IRS codes, and the other one is a Vocational Science of Freedom document that we're creating for status terms, law definitions, codes, and references in case law, all regarding status. So let's pull up and that one is pretty much something that you guys can look over and kind of use as a reference guide. It's 67 pages, so I'm not going to go over it in its entirety, but everyone should take the time to download it and look through it, because it's very interesting through time what different status terms have been called, how the attorney has altered them, and so on and so forth. And in all of the status terms in that document, we always state where we've gotten it from. So if we took it from Black's Law Dictionary 9th edition, it'll say that. It'll give the page number. If we took it from Bouvier's, it'll say that. If it's taken from a case, it'll say that. And some of these things, we do just have cases in here. Others are just long, very long lists of status terms. And then also that we have various different parts of the United States Code and other law, obviously including the foundational laws of American jurisprudence, constitutions, so on and so forth. But anyway, the point is that we're trying to lock down all of these things as best we possibly can, because in the be-all and end-all, what they're doing is they're killing you by words, and they're stealing your rights by words, because basically you're allowing them. And so to not know these words and to not know what the proper definitions of them are is definitely one of the banes of our existence at the moment as sovereign Americans. So I'll let you guys look at that kind of on your own volition, but let's now pull up the remedy doc. This is something that I've put into and on. I put it into the class, the live class that we did not that long ago, and I covered it, but I did add some things to it. So to start out here, what I've just found in the USC while searching for and I found this while searching for the term American national. That's what I was looking for, because I was trying to lock down that term. Okay, so what this section of the code says is that when you do lose your United States nationality, which very well may be different than the United States citizenship, but that's something that we're looking into, they have to give you a certificate that proves that you lost it. I didn't know this until literally a week ago. So I'd heard of a certificate of nationality that the Secretary of State used to give out to people if they asked for it, but they've now delineated that, supposedly, into the passport application process. Well, okay, no one's been able to prove to me that their passport is actually, quote unquote, special, unless and until somebody does actually get pulled over or something, and you have some run-in with the land pirates, and the land pirates say, oh, okay, here, you give your documentation back and have a nice day, ma'am or sir. That would be different, but I haven't had any of those stories as of yet. So we're still looking into how to do it correctly with the passport. But not to digress there with the passport, but the point is that the Secretary of State used to have a certificate. So, anyway, of nationality. But the certificate we're specifically talking about here is a certificate of loss of citizenship. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Two different certificates we're talking about here, but both having to deal with status. Okay, so anyway, so if there's anyone out there who they think, or you think that you have or should have removed yourself from United States nationality and or United States citizenship, need to contact the Secretary of State and demand a copy of the certificate that is stated below. And unless and until I lock down a perfect way to get this certificate every time with everyone, I'm not going to listen to anyone's presumption that they have had their status corrected. No one. Unless you can show me the certificate showing that you've lost and removed yourself as from a United States citizenship, you're still in there. You're still stuck. But there's a process that does not seem to be that difficult in U.S. code, and we've already tracked it down. So I am working on that on the backside of basically rewriting the Declaration of Nationality, which is one of the Vocational Science of Freedom status docs, in case anybody doesn't know that. In the Declaration of Nationality, we stated, and we were being very specific and very clear as to what we were and not what we were not, because you can't prove a negative, basically. So we didn't have any remedy, I guess is the word, but a functionality as to, or process as to, specifically revoke anything in that document the way that we had it written to begin with. Well, going back and taking another look at everything, it appears as though the corporate state definitely wants you to come in and say, hey, I'm not with you anymore, more or less. So, on that note, we're going to be redoing and revamping the Declaration of Nationality. Everyone who's had their status docs done is going to get a copy of the new Declaration of Nationality for free, and the title's going to change, and there's going to be, obviously, points of repudiation in it. So, with that having been said, getting back to the document here. So 8 U.S.C. 1501. This is the certificate part. So, Certificate of Diplomatic or Consular Officer of the United States as to loss of American nationality whenever a diplomatic or consular officer of the United States has reason to believe that a person while in a foreign state has lost his United States nationality. Now, these are specifically two different terms here. You have American nationality here, and then you have a United States nationality down here. I'm thinking, and this is just my theory at the moment, but looking at this code, it would appear as though the United States nationality, meaning the corporate citizenship, the aspect of you agreeing to be basically a resident of D.C., is something that can be gotten rid of. But if you are an American, or you were born an American, as in, i.e., one of the 50 states of the Union, then that's not something you can waive, I think, is basically how I've seen everything through the code and how it works. But anyway, with that in mind, let's continue here. So, reason to believe a person while in any foreign state has lost his United States nationality under any provision of Part 3 of this subchapter or under any provision of Chapter 4 of the Nationality Act of 1940, as amended, he shall certify the facts upon which such belief is based to the Department of State in writing. Okay, so there's got to be a record of it somewhere. Under regulations prescribed by the Secretary of State. Okay, fine. If the report of the diplomatic or a consular officer is approved by the Secretary of State, a copy of the certificate shall be forwarded to the Attorney General for his information, and the diplomatic or consular officer in which the report was made shall be directed to forward a copy of the certificate to the person to whom it relates. So guess what? They have to give you a copy of it also. And that's right in the code here. Okay, to continue. Approval by the Secretary of State of a certificate under this section shall constitute a final administrative determination. Administrative determination, right? Because the corporations can't make actual judicial determinations. A final administrative determination of loss of United States nationality under this chapter. Now notice it says loss of United States nationality under this chapter. It does not say American. So again, this is where this kind of gets a little interesting as to their choice of words. But anyway. Okay. So loss of United States nationality under this chapter is subject to such procedures for administrative appeal as the Secretary may prescribe by regulation, and shall also constitute a denial or right of privilege of United States nationality for purpose of Section 1503 of this title, and that would be Title 8. Okay, so that's what this section, Title 8, says. It says, if you lost it, there's got to be a certificate. The certificate has to be approved, and it has to be forwarded to the Attorney General. And it also has to be, a copy also has to be given to the person to whom it relates. So you have to have one as well. Okay, so that's what it says about certificate. Now, later on here, we found some more other interesting things about what happens with the certificate. So this also happens to be one of them. So I found hiding in the IRS codes. At the bottom, it states that everyone who has lost United States citizenship must have that loss of status published in the Federal Registrar. So not only do they have to create a certificate, not only have to pass it on to the Attorney General, but they also have to publish it in the Federal Registrar. And we did find the link, which, by the way, is in chat, as to quarterly publications, as to who has lost the United States citizenship. So anyway, this is just another note that I made to myself. I'm going to continue to look for the term American national and see what else comes up in not only United States Code, but also in CFR as well. So 26 USC 6039G, information on individuals losing United States citizenship. Now remember, Title 26 is IRS code stuff, right? So D, information to be provided to Secretary notwithstanding any other provision of law. 1. Any federal agency or court which collects or is required to collect a statement under subsection is provided by the Secretary. And information on individuals losing United States citizenship. Again, this is IRS code. Information to be provided to Secretary notwithstanding any other provision of law. 1. Any federal agency or court which collects or is required to collect the statement under subsection A shall provide to the Secretary. Now, this term Secretary here, I'm pretty sure they're talking about the Secretary of the IRS, not the Secretary of State. Just keep that in mind. So A, a copy of any such statement and the name and any other identifying information of any individual refusing to comply with provisions of subsection A, which is basically subsection A of this section was basically, hey, you're supposed to give them all of your information, like the Social Security number and yada yada yada, whatever. But that's not the interesting part of this little section here of this point. The point is that down here at the bottom, it says the federal agency primarily responsible for administering the immigration laws shall provide the Secretary the name of each lawful permanent resident of the United States within the meaning of that subsection, whose status as such has been revoked, has been administratively or judicially determined to have been abandoned. Now, this part, notwithstanding any other provision of law, not later than 30 days after the close of each calendar quarter, the Secretary, and again I'm believing this is IRS Secretary, shall publish in the Federal Registrar the name of each individual losing United States citizenship within the meaning of Section 77A or 77 little a or 77 big A, with respect to whom the Secretary receives information under the preceding sentence during such quarter. Well, that brought up a curiosity question to me. Why is it the Secretary of the IRS responsibility to publish anything in the Federal Registrar regarding loss of United States citizenship? It's because it's a fucking corporation. That's why. And the IRS is nothing but a glorified accounting firm. So that was that. So I found that interesting. Then if you go down even farther, what we found in CFR, 22 CFR, and CFR, by the way, does not stand for Council of Foreign Relations. It stands for Code of Federal Regulations. And the CFR, just so everybody understands how the CFR works and why it's specifically different than the U.S. Code. So they write law, they put things into the U.S. Code. Okay, not everything in the U.S. Code is actually law. I want you to know that. There are things that have to happen in order for things in the U.S. Code to be properly enacted, if you will, into positive law or even public law. And if certain things do not happen It's not law, it's just there, it's a suggestion. One of those corresponding things is that it has to have a section in the CFR that basically tells the government what to do in order to fulfill said law. So you have the IRS code, it says this, that, the next thing. Well, when you go into the Code of Federal Regulations, it tells them how to do it. And if there is not a corresponding Code of Federal Regulations from the standpoint of what they're doing, well, then it's not really fully been enacted into law, because there's nothing telling them what to do, more or less. There's other things that have to deal with something properly being enacted into law, but I won't get into that at the moment. Anyway, what we found in 22 CFR, remedy of our states. This is something that I may have found, the remedy of our states in CFR. I'm going to continue to reverse engineer this entire Code of Federal Regulations and find all the rest of the important agencies and services that will help us finish this. Again, I stumbled across this by searching for just a few key terms. So, but anyway, 22 CFR Chapter 1, Subsection H, Part 71.1. I found this interesting because they specifically separated Americans from United States citizens. So, subsection 71.1, protection of Americans abroad. Officers in the Foreign Service shall perform such duties in connection with the protection of American nationals abroad as may be imposed upon them by rules and regulations prescribed by the Secretary of State. Okay, great. Next one. American claimants to foreign estates and inheritances. Where treaty provisions, local laws, or established usage permit or a consular officer should protect the interests of American citizens claiming foreign estates and inheritances. Now, we're Americans. Are we going to be claiming a foreign estate? Yes, we are, because D.C. is foreign to us. And if that's where our estate is being administered, well, that's where we're going to claim it back out of. So this may be an integral part of the whole connection of how the game works, I guess you will. Next section, 71.4, real property of deceased American citizens. In the absence of special provisions for treaty, the devolution and transfer of real property are covered by the law of the place where the property is situated. Okay. That should be the proper de jure constitutional republic state. And the way to get them back should be through a proper court of record and claiming them, which is more or less what we do. Okay, so anyway, with that, to continue, when real property is left by the decedent within the county where death occurs or where the decedent was domiciled at the time of death, the consular officer or diplomatic officer, if there be no consular officer, should, if feasible, informally observe the proceedings and report to the diplomatic mission or the department any apparent irregularity or unnecessary delay in settling the estate. Okay. So that brought me to another understanding of, or another thought as far as the presumption of death is concerned. We get abandoned at the hospital, at the Foundling Hospital. No one comes and picks us up for 7 years, or even 5 years, basically. Presumption of death kicks in. They administer the estate, probate the estate. Now my question in reading this section would be, where was the probate administered? Where's the record of it? And was there a informally some observation of the proceeding and a report to the diplomatic mission, basically meaning the United States, that they've now more or less, quote unquote, settled the estate, even though they haven't, because it's under presumption of death. Because we know that in the IRS master file, we're all considered and labeled as a decedent. And a decedent is, by definition of the IRS, not dead, but pending death. Means they don't know if you're alive or dead. That's a decedent. So anyway, that brought me to interesting questions thinking about that side of it. And so anyway, but to continue, because there's more interesting stuff in here. 71.9, presentation of Americans at foreign courts. The chief of the mission concerned may exercise his discretion in the manner of procuring the presentation of American citizens at the court of the county to which he is accredited. This is definitions part, consular officer, legal representative means An executor designated by will intended to operate in the county where the death occurred or in the county where the deceased was residing at the time of death to take possession and dispose of the decedent's personal estate. Does anybody have any question now as to why it's so important to get your doc set done? Because you absolutely 100% have to have that executor appointment. And if you don't, you are absolutely buckled, because they will run you over as a special administrator because you have no will. Because that's what they're doing. They're administering the res of abandoned estates, abandoned infant estates. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing in every single courtroom. So, contrast number 1 here to number 2. Okay, so I just posted number 1 in chat. Now I'll post number 2. An administrator appointed by a court of law in intestate proceedings. Okay, so in case anybody doesn't remember, what's intestate mean? It means without a will, right? So an administrator appointed by a court, that's the black-robed priest that's sitting up on the bench. He's the administrator, okay? Of law, intestate, meaning without a will, proceedings in the county where the death occurred or in the county where the deceased was residing at the time of death to take possession and dispose of the decedent's personal estate. That also means your body. That's why they get to administer you forever, because no one comes back and claims the estate. That's the point. So next one, the next of kin we'll skip. I just want to post down here. Okay, so this was the same link that I posted in the mega file for the committee. You guys have that in chat, so no big deal there. I was going to scroll down and get into 8 USC 1481. Well, first I'll just repost 1 USC subsection 8, because this, of course, is the linchpin of everything else that they do in USC, which is they tell you that you're an infant, and they tell you that all of this stuff, everything, is only relating to infants, but nobody seems to pay attention to this. So 1 USC subsection 8, person, human being, child, and individual, as including born alive infant. So whenever you use, in statutory construction, whenever you use the word include, well, I'll just put it this way. There's a maxim of law that states the inclusion of one is the exclusion of all others. So what that means in statutory construction is that when you're writing a statute and you say trees include oaks and elms, that means what you just did was that you basically made sure that a pine tree was not considered a tree under that statute, right? Because if it only includes oaks and elms, that's it. That's all it includes. Nothing else, just that. So, in understanding that, now we can read 1 USC subsection 8 and actually learn what it says and actually understand what it means. Person, human being, child, and individual, as including born alive infant, A, in determining the meaning of any act of Congress or of any ruling, regulation, or interpretation of the various administrative bureaus and agencies of the United States, the words person, human being, child, and individual, comma, shall include every infant member of the species Homo sapiens. What's a person? It's an infant. What's an individual? Infant. Human being? Infant. Child? Infant. What's the problem with being an infant? An infant can't hold title, people, and that's why you have to claim your estates back properly. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get on to 8 USC here. Okay, so 8 USC 1481. This is the loss of nationality by native-born or naturalized citizens, voluntary action, proof, burden of proof, and presumptions. And of course, presumptions is what they're always doing. Now, I got this right out of Cornell, and of course, you guys can go click on that if you want to, and also grab it off Cornell if you feel like it. So I put the link, the hyperlink, right into the document. Okay, so a person who is a national of the United States, whether by birth or naturalization, shall lose his nationality by voluntarily performing any of the following acts with the intention of relinquishing United States nationality. 1, obtaining naturalization in a foreign state upon his own application. We don't really worry about that. 2, this is the one that applies to us. Taking an oath or making an affirmation or other formal declaration of allegiance to a foreign state. Now, what oath or affirmation are you taking to a foreign state. Well, it's the original republic. Meaning, say, if you're born in Michigan, that would be the Michigan would then be your nation. It would not be considered to be what the feds did, which was basically capture all the states and then turn them into federal conclaves or districts, if you will, with this federal overlay over the top of them, which is kind of what they did with the Buck Act, and also basically what they do with the zip codes and the district courts and even the circuit courts. So anyway, that state, that original lowercase s, because notice it's a lowercase s state here in the code. Lowercase s state and uppercase s state are two entirely different things. Lowercase s state means what consists of, meaning the people and the land. And uppercase s state means what occupies, like the government, right? Or fictions of law. So what we're doing is we're going to say we're going to take an oath and make an oath of affirmation or other formal declaration of allegiance to our original republic, which is a foreign state to the United States. And that's also in the code, even though I didn't bring it up tonight. That's clearly stated in the code in other places. Okay, so that's number 2, and then we skip 3, 4, come down to 5. 5, making a formal renunciation of nationality before a diplomatic or consular officer of the United States in a foreign state in such form as may be prescribed by the Secretary of State. Okay, when you go into a consular office, say, again, let's just take Michigan, for example. Say you go into the consular office in, like, Detroit or something, or wherever, Lansing, wherever one may be located, I don't know. But you go in there and you're going to talk to a consular officer of the United States. Are you in a foreign state? The answer is yes, you are. Because Michigan is foreign to the United States Federal Corporation. So that's would be the proper way to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to revamp the Declaration of Nationality, give it out to everybody, have everybody refile it, make a new filing, and then get a certified copy of it. And then we're going to have people go to the United States Consular Office, wherever the closest one is. Take that certified copy, put it on the desk, slide it across, say, I need to talk to a consular officer. And if they say, hello, I am one, then you can say, okay, great. I am now hereby formally renunciating my United States citizenship, and I am taking oath and allegiance to my nation, Michigan or whatever. And that'll be in the document. I mean, you don't want to have to say all that, but and then they'll basically say, okay, do you understand what you're doing? And of course you'll say yes. Then you should ask for the certificate. I don't know if they'll have the certificate, like they'll prepare the certificate immediately, but you should at least make the request to make sure that you get the certificate so that then you have proof that, guess what, you're not a citizen of the United States anymore. So, so that's what we're going to do. That's why it's in the code like that. And also, Section B is also interesting. Whenever the loss of United States nationality is put in issue in any action or proceeding commenced on or after September 1961, under or by virtue of the provisions of this chapter or any other act, get this, the burden shall be upon the person or party claiming that such loss occurred to establish such claim by a preponderance of the evidence. That's why you go and you record it onto the county recorder's office first. Get a certified copy, and then present it to the United States Consular's office. So you say, look, I've already made this public record. This is a done thing. I'm just noticing of it, making sure that you are noticed of it. Because your act was already done. And then you have a certified copy of it. That's the preponderance of the evidence. That's all you need. It's just public record, and you're good to go. So, okay, so that's that one. Now, 1502 is also, I think, slightly interesting because it says Secretary of State is authorized to issue in his discretion and in accordance with this is, by the way, the other certificate that I was talking about earlier. In his discretion, in accordance with the rules and regulations prescribed by him, a certificate of nationality for any person not a not a naturalized citizen of the United States, who presents satisfactory evidence that he is an American national, and that such certificate is needed for use in judicial or administrative proceedings in a foreign state. Such certificate shall be solely for use in the case for which it was issued, because they don't want these things just obviously flying around willy-nilly, or else everybody would start waving them around and say to everyone else, all the other sheep, hey, idiots, get the fuck out of Babylon, right? They don't want that kind of proof out there. But the fact that it's in the code, and the fact that it talks about use in a case, and it talks about American national, I find fairly important. Okay, so anyway, that's the other certificate that I was talking about. Now, this is the thing that they have now said that they've wrapped up into the passport application. Well, great. Again, I'd like to see we still got to somebody's got to prove out to me that they have a passport that's actually special, or actually is properly delineated to being an American national passport, if you will. But we'll figure that out as well, because I think after you get out with this proper certificate, then if you go back and you say, hey, I wish to have a passport issued, such and such, blah, 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 I think they'll either tell you one of two things. Either one, oh, we can't issue that for you because you're an American national, of which case I would say, thank you very much, put that in writing. Or it'll be something so different that it will completely look different than a United States passport. But that's just thought process on my part. I have no proof of that yet. Or it may just look exactly like the United States passport and actually be separately delineated, but not visible from the outside, which again is possible, but you're going to have to prove that to me. And we're going to have to find a way to prove it. Okay, so on to the next very strange thing that I found in bouncing around. This is a place where it's clear that they had to change the language, and it's interesting as to why they had to change it. Okay, so under 8 U.S.C. 1481, and this is like a little revised section, subsection 1999, it's like a footnote at the very end of 1481. You probably won't even find it if you try to look on it or look for it in, like, say, Cornell. You'll probably have to download this little section or get it directly from the government printing office. It's the only place I could find it. Or actually, I accidentally stumbled across it by looking at the government printing office version. Okay, so what is this? This right of expatriation. Okay, this whole entire paragraph, and I'll just copy and paste it into chat. This whole entire paragraph is all part of the original Expatriation Act, or properly named, an act concerning the rights of American citizens in foreign states, July 27th, 1868. Which is what they had to give as the way out of the 14th Amendment, or it would have been considered unlawful slavery again, and we would have been able to just kill them all. So they had to give a way out. But the point is that I'm going to show you in the last line here of, in the Act, what this says compared to what the original Expatriation Act says. So I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to skip down to the last sentence here. So therefore, any declaration, instruction, opinion, order, or decision of any officer of the United States which denies, restricts, impairs, or questions the right of expatriation is declared inconsistent with the fundamental principles of the Republic. That's what the code says. Now, when you scribble down here to what the actual act says in 1868, it says, be it enacted by the House of Representatives, Congress, America assembled, that any declaration, instruction, opinion, order, or decision of any officers of this government which denies, impairs, restricts, or questions the right of expatriation is hereby declared inconsistent with the fundamental principles of this government. Okay. Of this government. In 1868, they were originally In 1868, they still were of this government. They had not created the monster in 1871 yet, or 71, 73. I always forget that. When they created DC, okay? So the original one says fundamental principles of this government, right? Because this government at that time was the Republic. But in the code, it says inconsistent with the fundamental principles of the Republic. Why? Because they're not the Republic, nor could they call themselves this government, because they're not. You see? You see why they had to change it? But, 3-word change in something like this that, I don't know, I guess the universe just decided to let me have this, or that I should find this and give it to you guys, because I was a little bit shocked, honestly, because you're right. I'd never seen the word Republic in any code before, particularly not in dealing with fundamental principles of the Republic, for God's sakes. And then to find out and realizing, because I thought about it, because I'd read the Expatriation Act many, many times, and I thought, you know what? Does it really say the word Republic in the Expatriation Act? So I went back and I looked, and it doesn't. It said, of this principles of this government. And I thought, aha, why did they have to do that? Well, because they are not this government. They're an occupying power. So anyway, I found that absolutely fascinating. So just something to show other people and be like, hey, guys, that thing over there in DC, yeah, that's unlawful. That's a de facto thing. So anyway, I just find it funny when I can prove it in their own code that what they're doing. Okay, so next one, 26 USC 6039G. Or sorry, 6039G. Information on individuals losing United States citizenship. Now again, remember, 26 is IRS code. So again, this is the part in the IRS code where it says that, and I'm just going to skip down here, the Secretary of State shall provide to the Secretary, meaning the Secretary of the IRS, a copy of each certificate, because remember that certificate that they had to create? Okay, so the Secretary of State has to give a copy of every one of these fucking certificates to the IRS Secretary. Why? Because they're no longer taxable. That's why. You're out. Cannot be taxed. So I found this to be fascinating. So, asked to give each certificate as to the loss of American nationality under Section 358 of the Immigration Nationality Act, which is approved by the Secretary of State, and yada, yada, yada. Down here, notwithstanding any other provision of law, not later than 30 days after the close of each calendar quarter, the Secretary shall publish, again, this is the publishment in the Federal Registrar, right? So, they have to get the copy of it, and then they have to turn around and publish it in the Federal Registrar saying, yep, they're no longer a citizen of the United States, because they can no longer be taxed by the IRS. Can't be done. Can't be done. Now, you want to talk about something that's even more fucked up. Okay, so I looked in Cornell for this section, right? So I'm thinking, okay, what the hell does Section 7 or 877A and 877 big A say, right? I'm like, well, I'm going to go find that. Okay, went looking for it. This is the section that shows the non-resident alien individuals are not taxable. In the official CFR printout from the U.S. government website, this title and section is missing. But luckily, it can be found on Cornell Law School website. I'm not kidding you. In the official government printing office CFR, it's not in there. And you go look it up in Cornell, and it's there. I was like, you've got to be shitting me. But of course, it shouldn't surprise me. This is like their modus operandi. What do? They just lie all the time. So anyway, what is 26 CFR 26 CFR subsection 1.871-1, classification and manner of taxing alien individuals, actually get into? Okay, they're talking about what is a resident alien and a non-resident alien. If you're a resident, that means you're there temporarily being a merchant, doing business, and then when you're done doing your business, you'll go back to wherever you came from. That's a resident. So are we a resident of the United States. No. No, we're not. We're non-resident. So you come down here, class of non-resident aliens. In general, for purposes of the income tax, non-resident alien individuals are divided into the following three categories. Non-resident alien individuals who at no time during the taxable year are engaged in a trade or business in the United States. If the United States is defined as the District of Columbia, are you engaged in trade or business in the United States? The answer is fuck no. Number two, or II. Non-resident alien individuals who at any time during the taxable year are or are deemed under subsection 1.8719, which I also couldn't find at all anywhere, to be engaged in a trade or business in the United States. So again, are you engaged in a trade or business in the United States? The United States is defined as the District of Columbia. Answer, fuck no. Third one, non-resident alien individuals who are bona fide residents of section 931 possession, as defined in that section of this chapter, or Puerto Rico, during the entire taxable year, an individual described in paragraph of this section is subject to tax pursuant to the provisions of that section and the address these other codes and the regulations on these provisions. The provisions of subsection A do not apply to individuals described in this paragraph B1.3, but such individuals, except as provided in the other section, are subject to the tax imposed. So you notice how they very sneakily, just in the code here, tell you that it does not apply. Meaning the entire taxing code does not apply to non-resident alien individuals. Now, I would leave off the term individual. No, I'm not kidding you. It's in it's in 26 CFR because it's got to be. This was the problem. I kept looking in U.S. code. Problem is you got to look in CFR because CFR is what tells them what to do. Okay, well, then go look in 26, which was IRS stuff, in the Code of Federal Regulations. And it was right that, well, wasn't exactly that easy to find. I did kind of track it down through other weird methods, but I did eventually find it. And the point is that number 4 here, get this one. And I'll post this right in chat in case you guys haven't downloaded this little particular document and are looking at it at the moment. Look at that one. Expatriation to avoid tax. What? For special rules applicable in determining the tax of a non-resident alien individual who has lost United States citizenship with a principal purpose of avoiding certain taxes, see section 877. I cannot find section 877 anywhere. Not in Cornell, not in the code, not in the actual official printing of 26 USC. Can't find it. But I can almost goddamn well guarantee you what it's going to say. But it doesn't matter. We can already piece it together what it's going to say from B1.3 here about the part that it does not apply. So we know it's going to be in there. But the fact is that the fact that they're ghosting it just is so hilarious to me because they have to put it in there somewhere that you're a lawful non-taxpayer. Well, yeah, but they're never going to show it to you because they're thieves. The whole entire system is nothing but a slavery 3.0 for the new age pharmacopoeia for the sheep. It's all it is. So anyway, with that fun stuff having been said, you guys can look at that, peruse that, and again, this is just this little part and section that I put together with these funny little finds as of late. And this is just me spending 2 or 3 days going through all of the U.S. code and Code of Federal Regulations, basically searching for one bloody word or one set of words. So a lot can be found by not USC, CFR. 26 CFR section 877. That's what I can't find anywhere. Because it's the CFR that tells them what to do. So if you guys find it, great. I went looking for it. I couldn't find it. But if you do find it, wonderful. I'm not, Yeah, I just read it. That one, yeah, no, it's not. It's not U.S. code. It's CFR. It's in the go all the way up to go all the way up to the top and grab the document out of the out of text or out of chat. Sorry, I dropped the link. I'll drop the link again because I dropped it all the way up top beginning of class. So yes, I grabbed the mega link. I'll put it at the bottom again if anybody got here late, and go grab the document that I'm reading from, which is Remedy for the Settlement of Our Estates in CFR and the IRS Code. And then the other one I'll be reading from, which I'll skip over to now because we're done with this one, is I'm just going to go over a little bit of what is in the rest of the VSOF status related terms, terminology, law definitions, codes, references, and case law, which is all things relating to status. So, and here's an interesting thing, just the definition of state and foreign state. A foreign state or nation. The several United States are considered, now that's a different way of saying it, by the way. The several United States are considered foreign to each other, except as regards to their relations as common members of the Union. So, each state is foreign to each other, if you're talking about the Republic. What's some of these other ones here? Anyway, this is a very long, lengthy thing. There was one thing I was going to look for. Yeah, the aspect of repudiation, because that's what we're doing. So we're repudiating United States citizenship. So what does repudiate say? At least I'll read this one. Repudiation. Interesting. It's under ecclesiastical law, which I found fascinating. A person's refusal to accept a benefice, meaning to take a benefit from something. So when you're going and begging to the United States for your Roman civil rights, right? You're taking a benefit from them. So when you repudiate the United States citizenship, you're saying, I don't want a benefit. I don't want a benefice of any of your Roman civil law shit. None of it. Get away from me. 2. A contracting party's words or action that indicate an intention not to perform the contract in the future, semicolon, a threatened breach of contract, repudiation. I'm going to repudiate the contract, right? Okay, and then it gives a couple case keys. And then a repudiation is a statement by the obligor to the obligee indicating that the obligor will commit a breach that would of itself give the obligee a claim for damages for the total breach, or B, a voluntary affirmative act which renders the obligor unable or apparently unable to perform without such a breach. Well, basically, yeah, we're saying I should have never been here in the first place. You should have never tried to basically steal me from the Foundling Hospital in the beginning, right? Okay. Renunciation, the express or tacit abandonment of a right without transferring it to another. Wills and estates, the act of waiving a right under a will. At one time, one renounced an inheritance by intestacy and disclaimed a gift by will. Today, disclaim is common in both situations. See right of election, right? Because that's what we're doing. Your right of election of nationality is undeniable. I mean, even the filthy UN in their Declaration of Rights, if you want to call it that, even says that everyone has the right to their own nationality. So it can never be denied from anyone. And I'm not saying that just because the UN said it. I'm saying it's because it's a thing from time immemorial. It goes back forever. Before there were nations, basically, is the point. Before there were nations, everybody just wandered around the planet wherever they felt like. Okay, so does that right still exist? Yes, because it predates written law. And so therefore, you still have the right to do that. So therefore, you have the right to wander into some other country and say, hi, I'm here now. I'm going to be a German until I get done walking through Germany. And then I'm going to be, a Pole until I get done walking through Poland. And then I'm going to be a Ukrainian until I get done walking through Ukraine. And then I'm going to be a Russian until I get done walking through Russia. Whatever, however you want to do it. Point is that you have the right of election to be a citizen of whatever nation you wish to. Now, to make a point about that word, I do not want to use the words. I want to steer away from the word citizen as much as humanly possible, because the word citizen itself has been bastardized and has become a word that is synonymous with subject. Well, okay, I don't want to be a subject, we want to be one of the people of the original de jure republics, which then makes us or puts us back into the proper status of our sovereignty, which is where we should be at to begin with. Okay, and I think there was a few other things I wanted to flip through here. Non-resident, one who is not a dweller within some jurisdiction in question, not an inhabitant of the state of the forum. So one who is not a dweller within the jurisdiction in question, and so you're not there. So if you're not in the jurisdiction, right? I'm a non-resident, so I'm not dwelling in your jurisdiction. Bye. Some other ones we found that were interesting. Oh, nationality, the state of a person in relation to the nation in which he was born. So there's questions about, because we're going back and forth about this right now with the Declaration of Nationality, or whatever we're going to call it when we get done with it, that should we simply claim the original nationality, and we're just thinking about this, about how to be able to get this done quickly for people, to say, okay, and so it's not confusing to anyone when they fill it out themselves, or if they have to say, okay, the nation in which I was born, say it's Michigan. So say I'm a native-born Michiganian, right? So Michigan's my nation, but say I moved to, I don't know, Ohio. So now I'm a lawfully domiciled Ohioan, right? Does that remove my condition or remove my capacity to be one of the people? No, of course not. Can you only have one place of which you were native born? The answer to that question, of course, is yes. You can only be a native born Michiganian. But I see no problem in law anywhere that I've ever read that says that you then can't be one of the people of Ohio if you choose to make Ohio your nation. Well, how would you do that? Well, then you'd take that oath and affirmation to Ohio and to the people of Ohio. Not unlike what the Declaration of Independence says towards the end, right? What did they pledge to each other, right? That kind of thing. So anyway, see if there was anything else I wanted to cover here. Like I said, this is fairly lengthy. It's 67 pages, and it's not even close to being done yet. We are just kind of scratching the surface with this document. But anyway, since we're kind of coming up on the hour, I'll flip through chat real quick, and if anybody has any questions, I'll run through chat quick, and then also if anybody wants to unmute themselves and just ask a direct question, feel free to do so. Floor's open. Bodhisattva, if you're in the room, you're in the class. So if you can hear me, you're in here. Yeah, anybody wants to self-mute or unself-mute, the way to do that in the room is to go, now on a phone, see on an Android phone, I can't tell you because I've never run this program on a phone, but in the program itself, you would go to the lower left-hand corner and click on the little mute button that looks like a little microphone. There's a microphone, a headset icon, and then a phone icon. The phone icon ends the call, means you leave the room. The little headphone icon means you can deafen yourself, meaning that you don't hear anything. And the little microphone icon means that you can mute yourself. Now, if you've muted yourself and you want to unmute yourself, please do so. The only person that I have server muted at the moment is looks like Insight, because you might have had a hot mic at some point in time. So I'll unserver mute you. Just make sure that you self-mute. Oh, now I'm getting that weird hiss again. Was that why I did that before? Maybe that's why. Anyway, does anybody else have any other questions? No? I don't see anything else in chat. Okay. I searched for the nearest Bureau of Consular Affairs, and there's only one close by. From the page, clicked on the website, and it leads directly to the IRS. Okay. Well, I know that there's Secretaries of State offices, which is basically a consular office around the nation. I know that, so I know they are around. And yes, there's people that have found them in various different states. Um, so yeah, with that, just find your consular office and go to it. And after I get this document done, like I said, everybody who's had their VSOF doc sets done, I'll make sure that I get them out to everyone for free, no charge. So because once you buy the doc set, any of the updates come along with it for free. So okay, so with that, there's no other questions. I'd like everyone to have a wonderful weekend. I thank everyone for coming and joining the Vocational Science of Freedom Saturday night Civics and Sovereignty class. And we will also hold class, hopefully, as long as enough people show up, on this coming Wednesday for our Wednesday night open roundtable. So, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their weekend, and stay safe and stay sovereign.